So obviously, the narrative has completely changed. Before Francis Ngannou had his huge match with Tyson Fury, and he completely beat the brakes off him. Every MMA fan was saying that Francis Ngannou, to some extent, has fumbled the bag. He's completely fumbled the bag. He's completely destroyed the £8 million payday he was going to get from John Jones. He's completely screwed himself. He's not going to make any money now. But now he's made what, 12 to 15 million against Tyson Fury, and on top of that, he's in a contract with the PFL where he's guaranteed to get eight figures for every fight, and on top of that, like he's likely to get other stipulations coming in terms of finances. I mean, it seems like the whole narrative has changed, and now the fans are literally storming Dana White's Instagram page, and they're telling Dana White that he's fumbled the bag, that he literally let go one of the greatest combat sports athletes that's ever existed in MMA, UFC history, and he's completely screwed up the bag, and to some extent he has. I mean, let's just think about it this from a perspective. When Francis Ngannou came up to Dana White, he said to him in negotiations that he wanted to do a boxing match. Now, let's just imagine that the UFC was the one that did that promotion, done a cross promotion with the Saudis to put on that event that Francis Ngannou done with Tyson Fury. What would have happened? Like, literally, the brand would have become even more enhanced after Francis Ngannou's performance against Tyson Fury, and it would have made the UFC look incredible. Literally similar to what Conor McGregor done against Floyd Mayweather, but probably 10 times better, because let's be real, Conor McGregor never came close to beating Mayweather, while Francis Ngannou arguably, and in my opinion, did beat Tyson Fury. So it's been said now, like a lot of people are seeing, that Dana White was the one that fumbled the bag. It wasn't Francis Ngannou that did. With that being said, I was thinking, is there any way that Dana White can potentially salvage this? And I think there is one way he can salvage this, salvage his reputation to MMA fans, and potentially make some money off Francis Ngannou, even though he doesn't promote him. And the way he can do that, I think, for the longest time, Dana White wanted to keep his promotion 100% in-house. So he wanted all the fighters in the UFC to fight each other, but they were never going to fight fighters from other promotions. So they were never going to fight PFL fighters. They were never going to fight Bellator fighters. They were never going to fight fighters from one championship. All the fights in the UFC generally stay in the UFC. The one or two times when it's happened is when, obviously, when Conor McGregor fought Floyd Mayweather. But apart from reasonable exceptions, generally, the UFC, to some extent, is quite incestuous in the sense that they never fight fighters from other promotions. They only fight fighters within their own promotions. But I think if they're going to make an exception for Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather, I think they can make an exception for this. Now, after Francis Ngannou gave such a great performance against Tyson Fury, I think it's fair to say that his star level has at least quadrupled. Like his status in terms of the world media, everything, like, it is quadrupled because of that. Dana White knows about this, and he doesn't want to address it, and the world media is going to eventually ask him about it, and he's probably going to brush it off. But the fact is, right, there is one way that Dana White can salvage this and make some money off Francis Ngannou, and that's if he does a cross promotion with PFL and UFC. Think about it. If Francis Ngannou manages to win the PFL heavyweight title, right, and then he can literally Dana White can make history by doing a cross promotion with the PFL. Now he can take his guy, who is John Jones, who's scheduled to fight Stipe. Let's just say this happens after the Stipe fight, so he beats Stipe and he becomes the greatest UFC fighter that's ever lived, right? But there's one question mark, and the one question mark is, how would he have done against Francis Ngannou? Now, Francis Ngannou, in my opinion, I think he's going to win the PFL heavyweight title, because I don't think there's anyone in PFL that can match him. So he's going to win that title, and he's going to be the PFL heavyweight champion. So you've got the PFL heavyweight champion, who's Francis Ngannou, who's coming off, let's just say he wins one or two boxing fights against relatively high level opposition. You got Francis Ngannou, who's considered the baddest man on the planet, and you got John Jones, who's considered the greatest mixed martial artist who's ever lived, right? Them two coming together and fighting each other on a cross promotion with the PFL and the UFC. I think that can do astronomical numbers. Now, obviously, the UFC in general do not like to cross promote, but I think this is one exception to the rule, and I think it'll be the greatest thing for the fans because let's be real, like we get the best of both worlds. I mean, Francis Ngannou gets the bag. He fought Tyson Fury in boxing. He gets to fight in boxing, but the problem is the fact that he left the UFC. We never got to see one of the greatest matchups in MMA history, which would have been obviously Francis Ngannou versus John Jones. If I was Dana White, if I wanted to salvage the reputation I have for fumbling the bag with Francis Ngannou, I know he's not likely to do this because he's got a huge ego. But as a selfish MMA fan, one thing I'm sad about is the fact that we never got to see John Jones versus Francis Ngannou. So I think if Dana White wanted to salvage his reputation somewhat, I think if he makes the Francis Ngannou versus John Jones fight as a cross promotion, UFC x PFL, UFC versus PFL, that would be huge. I mean, that would do astronomical numbers, especially with Francis Ngannou's newfound fame and the fact that he shot to fame because of what he did 2 days ago when he completely bashed up Tyson Fury. This would do astronomical numbers. I think that Dana White should cross promote with the PFL and do a fight between John Jones and Francis Ngannou. I mean, let's be real. Francis Ngannou never lost his title in a fight. He vacated the title to leave the UFC as a free agent to get better paydays, right? So I think the most logical thing to do, let's be real, let's just say assuming that John Jones beats Stipe and is still the heavyweight champion of the world, he could ride off to the sunset, but he said there's one fight, if it was to happen, he would stick around, and that's against Francis Ngannou. It seems unlikely because he's in a different promotion, but if there's one person that can make it happen, it's Dana White. So I feel like Dana White should do a deal with PFL, cross promotion fight. Both parties will make a lot of money. I mean, both of them will make probably 10 million guaranteed for an MMA fight, and the PFL will get its exposure. The UFC will get its exposure. I mean, the narrative that's being spun now about Dana White fumbling the bag. I mean, he's gonna get that exposure, and he's gonna make some money off Francis Ngannou if this happens. So, I think this is what should happen. I think Dana White should put his ego to one side, and I think he should make a cross promotion fight with John Jones, right, and Francis Ngannou. Both of them need to come together and fight each other, and we need to find out who's the baddest man on the planet. It's definitely not Tyson Fury based on 2 days ago, but it could be John Jones, it could be Francis Ngannou, and the only way to find out is if they fight each other. So tell me what you think below. Do you think it's possible this could happen? I don't think it's possible because Dana White's got a huge ego, and I don't think he'll do it, but as a selfish MMA fan, it's something that I would love to see. So tell me what you think. Maybe this can happen. It's probably not likely to happen, but I'd love for it to happen. John Jones versus Francis Ngannou in a crossover PFL versus UFC fight. It'll be huge. It will do massive pay-per-view numbers. It will literally break records, and it'll be a massive, great fight that, like, literally. And not only that, you can have the undercard with other UFC fighters fighting other PFL fighters, and they all come together in some type of crossover event. It's almost like Street Fighter versus Tekken. You got the best fighters from Street Fighter, you got the best fighters from Tekken, and let them fight each other. Find out who's the man, who's the main man, and also find out who's the main man in the heavyweight division, who's the real baddest man on the planet, excluding obviously Tyson Fury because we know he's not that guy based on what we saw last weekend. So tell me what you think below. Who do you think this could happen? Do you think it won't happen? I would love to hear your thoughts, and I would love for it to happen, but I'm just not going to hold my breath. I think Dana White's got such a huge ego; he's not likely to let it happen. So, tell me what you think below, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace.